Self-regulation of language behavior. Now, a basic assumption in all language studies is that language is a self-regulated behavior. Now, what do we mean by self-regulation? By self-regulation, we mean that we manage or do things on our own. So what we are saying regarding the language itself is that although language is acquired through a socialization process, that is, we learn the language from our family and peers and at school, yet when individuals use language, they somehow appropriate or adjust language according to their own needs. And this is called self-regulation. When we are guided by other people regarding the use of language, that is, what is the appropriate vocabulary to use in a given context, what do certain words mean, then this is called other regulation. So from other regulation, individuals definitely and even at a very young stage move to self-regulation. So they adjust the language according to their own use. If we want to have an example in this regard, think about teenagers' language. You might have come across teenagers using lots of slangs, using specific words which you and I might not even understand. And they have certain terminology that they use. And this is all because they need to somehow establish their identity as teenagers, and they have appropriated the language in their own ways to somehow establish their own distinct identity. Now, when language change occurs at individual level or at societal level, we will say that old forms of language may seem to exist. So we can say certain parts of language do continue to exist, while there might be new forms of language which are added to it. For instance, say about 40 years ago or 50 years ago, when computer was not very common, the word computer was added when that was invented, when that came into use, the word Google it, several other things. Now, at times it might also happen that old forms do exist, continue to exist, but the same forms now have a different type of meaning. Now, think about the word, for instance, save. So, save somehow has changed its connotation when you talk about saving a file in a computer. So, it's not about providing help to somebody, which save would otherwise mean, but this would mean like ensuring that a certain file is placed in a way that it is accessible after some time, that is, whenever you want to access it. So there are other examples of this sort, and this would mean that the same things, same words, however, have different connotations now. At times it also might happen that there are certain old forms which simply cease to exist. So they are forms of language that you do not actually use anymore, and they have become obsolete. I often give this example from English language. Think of the Shakespearean language, the use of thou instead of you. Now it has been replaced. Similarly, so many things in Urdu language, if you look at old Urdu literature, which at that time was using the language that was commonly used in the streets, now has changed so much. In any case, the thing to remember over here is that language change is constantly in flux. It's constant. It's difficult to stop because it is a higher order skill. It is a higher order skill would mean that it is a cognitive skill, relates to the brain, but then it relates to your emotions. It relates to your social context. So it's a whole complex system or symbol of saying what you want to say. And because language is never ahistorical, that means it always has a history. The words that we use are loaded with meaning. It is essentially involved in social power and the dynamics of societal power, of the individual peer relationships. That is why it is a self-regulated skill. And if it is a self-regulated skill, then that means that change in language is inevitable because all individuals are unique and they appropriate and use the language in their own way for serving their own specific needs in given the context and in the given time. So whether it is language switching, if you are a bilingual, or the use of certain vocabulary, it is nevertheless a higher order skill.